Every city has its legends, and our towns revolved around the old Highway 47. It was said to be haunted, and those who traveled it at night often spoke of an eerie presence. But for years, these stories remained just that, stories, until one fateful night when I experienced it myself. It was a rainy Friday evening, and I was driving back from a late shift at work. The rain was relentless, turning the road into a slick, glistening path. As I merged onto Highway 47, the night seemed to close in around me, the headlights cutting through the darkness like two lonely beacons. The radio crackled with static, and I decided to turn it off, letting the rhythmic patter of rain and the hum of the engine fill the silence. I was barely a few miles into the highway when I felt it, a cold, unsettling sensation, as if the temperature had suddenly dropped several degrees. Glancing in the rearview mirror, I saw nothing but the empty back seat, yet I couldn't shake the feeling that I was no longer alone. I dismissed it as fatigue and kept driving. But then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement in the mirror, a fleeting shadow. My heart skipped a beat and I looked again, but the back seat was still empty. Unease settled in the pit of my stomach as I tightened my grip on the steering wheel. A few more miles passed and the sense of being watched grew stronger. I could almost feel eyes boring into the back of my head. I glanced at the rearview mirror again, and this time I saw it clearly. A figure sitting in the back seat. It was just a silhouette, a dark shape against the dim light, but it was undeniably there. Panic surged through me. I swerved slightly, my breath quickening as I forced myself to keep my eyes on the road. "Who are you?" I whispered, not expecting an answer. The figure remained silent, but its presence was palpable, filling the car with an oppressive weight. Suddenly, the figure leaned forward, and I could see its face in the mirror, a pale, ghostly visage with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce through me. I gasped and looked away, fear clawing at my chest. I didn't know what to do. My mind raced with thoughts of how to escape this nightmare, but I was trapped in my own car, on a dark and lonely highway. The figure's cold breath brushed against my neck, sending a shiver down my spine. I fought the urge to turn around and confront it, knowing that I couldn't take my eyes off the road. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure spoke in a raspy whisper. "Help me!" I jolted, nearly losing control of the car. The voice was filled with despair, a haunting plea that echoed in my ears. Gathering my courage, I forced myself to respond. "How? How can I help you?" But there was no reply. The air grew colder, and the figure seemed to fade into the shadows. Then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the figure spoke in a raspy whisper. "Help me!" I jolted, nearly losing control of the car. The voice was filled with despair, a haunting plea that echoed in my ears. Gathering my courage, I forced myself to respond. "How? How can I help you?" But there was no reply. The air grew colder, and the figure seemed to fade into the shadows. I drove the rest of the way home in a daze, my mind reeling from the encounter. When I finally pulled into my driveway, I sat there for a long moment, trying to make sense of what had happened. The rain had stopped, and the silence was almost deafening. Over the next few days, I couldn't shake the memory of that ghostly passenger. I began researching the history of Highway 47 and discovered a tragic accident that had occurred years ago, a car crash that had claimed the life of a young woman. Her body was never found, and many believed her spirit still roamed the highway, searching for help. Though I never saw the figure again, the encounter left a mark on me. Every time I drove down Highway 47, I couldn't help but glance in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see those hollow eyes staring back at me. And in the quiet moments of the night, I could still hear that whispered plea, "Help me." Sometimes when the night is dark and the cold wind howls, I think about that mansion, the one that changed my life forever. Known to everyone as the Whispering Shadows, it held an eerie fascination and a deep-seated fear in our village. This story took place a few years ago when I, along with my 3 friends, Sarah, Ali, Rayhan, and Zara, decided to explore that infamous place. One cold evening, Driven by curiosity and a love for the unknown, we set out to visit the mansion. Armed with cameras and flashlights, we approached as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long, eerie shadows across the land. As we pushed open the heavy, creaking door, a chill swept over us, and we stepped into what felt like another world. Inside, the air was thick with the smell of damp wood and decay. The floorboards groaned under our feet, and the walls seemed to close in on us as if the mansion itself was aware of our presence. With each step we took, the feeling of being watched intensified. Every corner seemed to hide an unseen presence, and the flickering beams of our flashlights cast unsettling shapes on the walls. But it was the whispers that sent chills down our spines. Soft, almost imperceptible murmurs that seemed to float through the air, calling out to us. Room by room, we explored the mansion, finding remnants of a long-forgotten past. Dust-covered furniture, faded portraits, and antique trinkets. In one of the rooms, Sarah discovered an old journal, its pages yellowed and fragile. As she read aloud from it, the whispers grew louder and more urgent, as if the mansion was trying to communicate with us. The journal told the story of the Chorus family, who had once lived there in opulence, but beneath their luxurious facade, they were tormented by a dark force. The whispers, it seemed, had driven each family member to madness and despair. The final entry was written by the youngest daughter, Amara, who described in heart-wrenching detail how the whispers had turned her family into monsters. She recounted the terrifying nights she spent hiding in her room, listening to the screams and the horrifying sounds of something prowling the halls. Her last words were a desperate plea for help, written in a shaky, frightened hand. As Sarah finished reading, we realized the whispers had grown deafening, and now they were calling out our names. Panic set in, and we decided to flee, but the door we had entered through was now locked, trapping us inside. Desperation took over as we frantically searched for another way out. In the basement, we stumbled upon a hidden door leading to a dark, narrow passage. With no other options, we ventured into the passage, the walls pressing in on us as we descended deeper into the mansion's depths. The whispers followed us, louder and more insistent, and we felt cold, unseen hands brush against our skin. The passage twisted and turned, leading us to a vast, cavernous chamber lit by the eerie glow of ghostly blue flames. In the center of the chamber stood a figure, a tall, gaunt man with hollow eyes and a chilling smile. He wore the clothes of a bygone era, and his gaze seemed to pierce through us. He introduced himself as Raza Chorus, the last surviving member of the family. He had been trapped in the mansion for centuries, held captive by the whispers that had driven his family to madness. Raza explained that the mansion was cursed, feeding on the fear and despair of those who entered. The whispers were the voices of those who had been consumed by the curse, doomed to roam its halls forever. He had tried to escape, but was bound to the mansion by the same dark force that now threatened us. Listening to Raza's harrowing tale, we realized we were part of the mansion's dark legacy. The whispers grew louder, urging us to join the ranks of the damned. But we refused to give in. Summoning every ounce of courage, we fought our way back through the passage, battling the shadows and whispers that tried to drag us back. Emerging into the cold night air, we gasped for breath. Feeling the mansion's grip loosening, we stumbled out into the safety of the open, the whispers fading into the background, replaced by the rustling of the wind in the trees. We never spoke of our ordeal again, but the memory of the whispering shadows haunts us to this day. The mansion still stands, silent and foreboding, its secrets locked away within its decaying walls. And somewhere deep within the shadows, the whispers continue, waiting for the next group of curious souls to enter its dark embrace. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more chilling tales. Share your thoughts and fears in the comments below. And remember, some souls just need to be remembered.